Welcome to Good Enough Chats. My name is Dan Boucher. I'm your host today, and I'm joined by Ben. Ben, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm a good 8.5 out of 10, if I'm honest. So I've been talking
Excellent.
about that a bit.
Yeah. That's a very solid way to start the day. We will come on to that absolutely. I don't know what the weather's like for you at the moment, but it kind of felt like summer was on its way, and then all of a sudden summer wasn't on its way. So I've actually got underneath here, Ben. He said, "This is for the video viewers only." Teasing. So I have my Talk Club T-shirt on here, which I wear with pride. Not just when I'm on calls with you, I promise. Honestly.
Good. I want that everywhere. Yeah. Don't cover it.
No, I can't get it all out, Ben. It's freezing. Um, but that and we will absolutely be talking about Talk Club throughout this conversation as well. But before I ask you to introduce yourself fully, Ben, I just want to capture the attention of the people that are watching this or listening to this first time because you're on it. Because obviously, Good Enough Chats, we've done over 3 dozen of these conversations now. You're the first person who's a charity founder that's come on, so that's super exciting for me. But for the benefit of people that haven't heard one of these before, this conversation is unscripted. It will be presented unedited as well. Those are 2 very deliberate decisions that were taken when creating this to make sure that the person who is talking can talk as freely as possible without having to feel pressure to say the perfect thing. Because there is no perfect answer with this stuff, right? And if there is a stumble or repetition to get to the point where you've got the answer that you're happy with, so be it. I want you to feel comfortable, Ben, and I want the audience to realize that this stuff doesn't always run as smoothly as you might see in a polished, edited product. It's also always based around the same 5 questions. So Ben or any other guest can prepare as much or as little as they want to for this discussion. And obviously, whatever Ben says in response to those questions may take us off on some tangents. I've got a funny feeling it will do today. But if Ben is at any point unhappy with or uncomfortable answering the questions that come up on top of those 5, all he's got to do is say, I don't really want to talk about that, and we'll get back onto the structure of the 5 questions. Okay? So all super simple. Right. Now that bit's done, Ben, please could you introduce yourself for our audience? Could you give us your full name, where you're from, what you do for a living, home life situation, and the key question that everybody comes back for: what is your favourite flavour of crisps?
Wow. Okay, great. So I'm Ben Akers. I'm co-founder, co-CEO of Talk Club. Right, we started Talk Club 7 years ago. Before that, I was in advertising. I used to run ad agencies. I was a creative director as well, sort of creative writer through that world. I live in Bristol, so South Bristol. My home life is 3 very loud children under the age of 13. An amazing wife who's Claire, who's an SEN teacher, but she also is one of the founders of Talk Club. And 2 cats and a hamster that we have to keep apart. And what was the next thing? Oh, my favorite crisp. So even though I'm a vegetarian, my favorite crisp is Monster Munch beef crisps. That's my favorite crisp. Even though I'm a vegetarian, I also like a hula hoop beef crisp. That's my favorite crisp. And I was just before we started this, I was telling Dan that I've picked up a book recently about crisp packet design from the 70s to 2000. I can't wait for 2020 to 2000, the next edition of it. So I pick up literally rubbish when it comes to design. So I pick up all rubbish and stuff like that. That's where a lot of my ideas come from. So yeah.
Wow. Wow. I love that. And also, the beef Monster Munch. That's the first time that's come up as a result in this very scientific survey that I'm doing of the male population of the UK. But it's a good pick. It is a really good pick.
It's also what it does is it sort of like leaves a little bit on the top of your mouth, a little bit of sort of like a little bit for later. That was sort of like that was a thing for school. When you're at school, there was always that one kid who sort of like, and his name was Neil Colley at my club in my school. Neil Colley. He would sort of like he would just literally try and ram as many Monster Munches, and it was always Monster Munch, into his mouth as quickly as he could before people nicked his crisps. And there was I just remember the horrible moment where everyone would try and nick his crisps, and he spat in his crisps so that people wouldn't nick them. And so it was sort of like, yeah, I wonder what Neil's up to now. He was a genuinely interesting person, Neil Collins, in South London.
Yeah. Well, he could be running for prime minister. Who knows?
I am expecting him on. I'm expecting him on standing behind Trump at some stage. So like,
Monster Munch still flowing out of his mouth.
yeah.
Oh,
Good.
lovely
I
stuff.
like that. I like that one. Yeah.
Excellent. Right, let's jump into these questions then. So you've talked about Talk Club. The first question is, why are you here today talking about your lived experiences of mental health? And please feel free to weave into that more information about what Talk Club is, what it does, because I think that is super relevant for our audience.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. Yeah. It's important for me to laugh. It is important for me to laugh, and it's important for me to keep my number. That helps me keep my numbers high. Talk Club is a male mental health charity. We've been running for 7 years, and we're all based around this idea or this line. We call it the truth question. How are you out of 10? So when I checked in, I'm an 8.5. Before I continue, Dan, how are you at the moment? What number are you out of 10, please?
I'm going to go with 7.5, but that's already on an upward trajectory from this morning.
Thank you for sharing. And that's all you can do in Talk Club is when someone says your check-in, you can ask why, but all you can ever do is go, thank you for sharing, because your number's your number, my number's my number. I like to exist between an 8 and 8.5. I've got a feeling I'll be a 9 by the time this call's done. And I'm really, really aware of it. I'm really, really aware of those numbers. So, as I say, Talk Club began 7 years ago. Now, I'm going to say something that I'm going to talk about my story, obviously, and I really need everyone to sort of be aware of this. I'm going to talk about mental ill health, and I'm going to talk about suicide. So please just be aware of that from in the following sort of words that I come out with. So Talk Club came about because my childhood best friend took his own life. So Steve, a beautiful man called Steve Yates, who went to school with me and Neil Colley, was what are we looking at now? 2014? Was it 14? Christ, it's so long ago now. 14. So 2014, so took his own life. I'd been in Australia, he'd been in Canada, and I'd just returned back to the UK. I'd be back in the country 2 weeks. I get that horrible phone call. Are you sitting down? No, I'm not sitting down. It was Steve's cousin, Becca, rang me. Why are you ringing me, Becca? You never ring me. Why are you ringing me? So I knew it was Steve. I knew it was about Steve. I knew it was I knew he'd gone. I didn't know how he'd gone. I'll be honest, suicide was the last thing in my head, the reason why he'd gone. I thought he was. I mean, we used to muck about when we were kids, driving around the sort of North Kent, South London. I for some reason I had in my head that he died in a car crash, but obviously we'd grown up since then. But it was suicide, and he'd been back. As I say, I'd been back in the country a couple of weeks. He'd been back a little bit longer, maybe a month. And then in those 2 weeks, his mental health, apparently in Canada, his mental health had been terrible, and it deteriorated when he came back, and then he decided to complete. And it hit me pretty hard. It's sort of like with anyone who's been involved with someone been affected by suicide, you blame yourself straight away. You sort of go, why didn't I do this? Why couldn't I do this? Why didn't this happen? My mum's a therapist, so I've grown up around therapy. My dad was schizophrenic when I was younger, so which turned her into becoming a therapist, and she's 80 at the end in July, so she's been doing this for she's been a therapist nearly 40 years. So I knew about the power of needing to talk about this and trying to do something with it. So so yeah, I mean, I'm now carrying his coffin, talking the eulogy at his funeral. There's 300, 400 people at his funeral. And the thing was that he felt unloved when he was alive, but he was clearly loved, and that's the problem with mental ill health, is that you don't realise that it is an illness. So for 3 years, I spent a lot of time in therapy, asking why, trying to work out why. You never know why. And then, well, this is one of your later questions, so I can't go on to that. But that's sort of like, that was the sort of like the creation of why Talk Club came about, and how it. Oh, I'm gonna have to go on to that. That was the reason why we started. That was my journey into sort of like my reason why I began Talk Club with Steve.
And how many talk club, talking circles, groups have you managed to grow it to now?
So we started our first one in I can just do the whole story, and it'll muck up your 5 questions. Shall I just go with that?
Well, let's do the story about Talk Club now, because I think that is really important. Then the latter questions will be more specifically about you.
Okay,
That's a fair deal.
Yeah, so we've got 150 clubs now. 150 plus clubs around the UK. We've got about 112, 113 community clubs. And then we've got clubs in prisons. We've got 26 in prisons, and then we've got loads in businesses. So the first one started here in Bristol, in the back of a Bristol pub, and now, yeah, we're literally I mean, we train captains, blokes who run the clubs. We train those once a week on a Thursday lunchtime, and I think Ben F, who works for me and Gav. So me and Gav are the co-CEOs, and there was 6 founders, Claire being one of them, Neil Harrison, Blue O'Connor, and Tom Button were the other ones. And me and Gav are the co-CEOs. We run the charity, and it's Ben F works for us. Tidy, we call him, and Steve Bernard is our community manager. And Ben F trained 14 captains on Thursday. We're setting up clubs at a rate of knots. Do you know what I mean? We're setting up clubs probably. They won't be all new clubs off that. There will be co-captains who'll be training as well off that. But I expect another sort of 5 clubs this month. So we're 5 to 8 clubs this month. So we are setting up a lot. The clubs we're talking listening groups, sort of like 2 hours, 4 questions. How are you out of 10? Your mental, how are you out of 10? What are you grateful for? How are you going to look after your mental fitness this week, moving forward? And your checkout numbers. And we have, so those are our main core, if you like, our talking listening groups. And then we have talking exercise groups. So it could be talking football, talking running, talking boxing, talking just anything that you're doing physical activity. You just check in with your number, do your activity, check out your number. It's a real sort of simple way of getting to men to think about it. Like, you can come play football with us. You don't have to talk about stuff. You just get used to the idea of using numbers and how they are out of 10. And then you go, you need a little bit more help. You come to our talk and listen groups, which are more formulaic, as I say, sort of 8 to 10 men in a group, lasts about 2 hours. I mean, you're answering those 4 questions. To be honest, you're listening most of it. It should be called Listening Club. It just doesn't look as good on the logo. But then that's our main sort of like our main core is our talk and listen groups. But then also we have, if you're regularly checking in below a 5, we have therapy. So we have therapy groups, talk club therapy groups, and we have talk club one-on-one therapy. So because Gav, my co-CEO, he's a therapist, so it was really important for me being, when we started this thing, like I'm the noise, he's the brains. It's sort of like I sort of I'll try and come up with getting ways of getting men to understand what we're doing and getting them into the room, and then Gav and a lot of the team make sure that everyone's safe. So that was really, really important for me when we sort of set it all up. Yeah, and then we're just, as I say, we're a tiny team here in Bristol, but we've trained over 700 captains, the blokes who run the groups, and we've got some really good we're a really good team around us, but we're really, really tiny core.
Mm. Yeah, and you invited me to join in on one of those captains training sessions, which I did that in back in January.
Is it?
Um, and what struck me was, I guess it's not a surprise, right? If someone's going to put their hand up and say, "I want to go through this training," what struck me was the sort of the breadth of people that were coming forward to be captains, the different ages, uh, ethnicities, places they were over the country. It was just seeing that pan out was heartening, because that is not the narrative that gets painted, right? Um, Mainly because men have historically not been all that great at opening up, and not necessarily all that great at listening, which is why I think the structure of what you do is so powerful, because it really does tell people, now's the time to talk, now's the time to listen.
Mm.
Uh,
I mean, it's really important, like tonally, really, like, because as I say, my background is advertising. Tonally, it was always about, for me, it was all about making it really, really accessible.
mm,
So, um, what what I used to do in advertising was I was a pro. Like, I started selling crap to people they didn't need. But then what I started working on when I was in Australia was I started working on ideas for good and looking at solving problems. And that was a lot about where Talk Club came from, is that when Steve died, I wanted to solve that problem. And I made it all came from all the founders met through the film we made called Steve. So I decided that I wanted to make I read an article saying that men of our age watch sport and documentaries, and I was like, okay, I'm going to make a film then. And I dabbled with filmmaking in Sydney more out of necessity more than a passion to make film. It was more like, the way I do things is always about like, what's a problem I want to solve and how can I get the quickest way of getting people to solve it. So I decided to make a film called Steve, 90-minute documentary. Watch it at stevedocumentary.com. You can still watch it. But then I was like, okay, well, how do I get this out there? Like, I'd done a couple of films before, and it was like, I can get it on a streaming site, but that's not solving my problem. My problem is getting men talking. So the idea was actually going, okay, I'll create it as a pub tour. And I talked to my mate who's the CEO of a very successful charity, and he goes, Benny, that's brilliant. He goes, I couldn't get away with that. It's a mental health charity. And he went to me, I couldn't get away with that. And I was like, so that's what I did. I did it as a pub tour. I did 50 screenings from to Falmouth, all up and down the country, different pubs, sports clubs, and some building sites. I just went to wherever men were, and I left a talk club in my wake. That was the idea. So it was like, it's like, if I can get men to sit in front of me and feel wherever they, and this is the tone of we've always set with Talk Club, is if I can, I want I want them to look after themselves. We call it mental fitness. Like in the film, a bloke called Danny Sculthorpe introduced me to this idea of mental fitness. He goes like, and suddenly this light bulb went on in my head, and I'm going, tonally, men don't understand. They understand fitness. They understand physical fitness. We understand this. We've done this since PE and kids. but we don't understand that we are in control of what our we can control what goes through our mind, and we have to work really hard on it. And a six pack doesn't come overnight. So you've got to work on your physical fitness, and you've got to work on your mental fitness. That's the reason why I'm an 8.5, because I've worked really, really hard on keeping myself mentally fit. I'm really aware of what I eat. I'm really aware of the space that I take out. I'm really aware of get some vitamin D, getting out in the sun. I'm really aware of stress levels. I'm really aware of all these things are all my coping mechanisms. I'm talking about suicide daily. So I've got to work really, really hard to keep myself mentally fit. So these are all these combinations that are coming into the way that we started, which was like, okay, I need to build a team that are, I don't want to do this on my own because it'd be too much pressure on me. I need to build a team of people who want to make this thing work. Pulled in Gav, and Gav's just like amazing. So me and him are very different. Both Gooners, but we're very similar in many ways. When it comes to our passion for sort of getting men talking. And then we have, well, we basically Talk Club is all about just enabling people. That's all it is. But as you say about the 4 rounds, keeping it really, really simple, giving men the space to help themselves, give them the tools to help themselves, because we don't like to be pats on the head. We don't like that. But we need help.
Mm.
We've got a fold out. I say in my TED talk, I've got this fold out flyer. I haven't got one with me, but the fold out flyer. It's like, here are the rules on how to talk, and all this is the 4 rounds what you did when you're training. And I go, what's the first thing a bloke's going to do? He's going to fold it in half. He's going to fold it in half, fold it in half again, and he's going to chuck it in his pocket. So I'm going to use every single side of that to convince you to be part of Talk Club. And that's the type of stuff that the blokes like. That's the stuff that we like. We like sort of, we want to belong to something. We've got this tribalness that goes back in our DNA. So belonging to something, and then if I can get you to belong and want to be part of something that looks after you, then suddenly it's about creating a routine, a community. It's about like like I use the gym a lot. Like, I don't use the gym a lot. I use the gym as an analogy a lot. But it's like you go to the gym. The way that we look after our mental health is that we go like so for example, you have 6 sessions with a therapist, and then you go, fine, I'm fine now. I goes, well, that doesn't work. You're not fine. You are just, you've stopped being injured the same way that you would when you saw a physio, right? You sort of like, you go to a physio and you get your knee back working again. But you don't go to the gym and you go to the gym to get fit, and you keep going to keep fit. And that's all Talk Club is. You come to us to get mentally fit, and then you keep coming to stay mentally fit, because your family, the world you live in, your colleagues, your partner, your kids, your parents, they need you mentally fit to put up with all the pressure that we're under. So
Mm.
that's a tone that we play with. That's a tone that I sort of like, that I'm always trying to work on, to try and make it easier for people to say yes is always my way of doing things.
Yeah.
Right, like remove as many barriers as possible, make it easier for people to say yes, make it easier for people to come along, make it easy for people to open up. Um, and you will be better for it, and your family will like you for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so much of what you touched on there, I mean, I was kind of sort of default back to, if somebody isn't aware that they've experienced poor mental health, because let's be honest, everyone has experienced it at some point. They don't. If they, I think there's a tendency to think that, to your point, I've done this thing, I'm fixed, now I move on.
We're we're
And
we're in a broken fix it mentality, like when it comes to our mental health, right? Literally, we wait for ourselves to have a heart attack before we go for a run. That's almost what we're doing when it comes to our mental health. And it's so backwards. And that's the reason why there is so many mental health charities on the increase, and organizations moving forward, is because the system is broken. I mean, like, it's the NHS is has been on its knees for as long as I can remember. I don't remember it ever not being on its knees. and it's sort of it's trying its best to keep everyone going, but I'll be honest. I mean, the NHS let Steve down, and what I've always done is when I get I've got a skill of as a communicator. That's my job, right? And that's what I wanted to do when I was 14, and ended up being reasonably successful in my career through it. When I was in Sydney, I'd be taking on coke for recycling. I'd be because they were trying to block some recycling legislation, or I was taking on the asylum seeker debate. And when I came back and everything happened with Steve, I was like, I'm gonna start a fight with suicide. That's what I want to do. I don't want anyone to go through what I've been through. I don't want anyone to go through what Steve's family's gone through. I don't want that to happen. And when I get those moments of people telling me I'm only alive because I've seen Steve, or I'm only alive because I'm part of Talk Club, like you you take them back and you're going, Christ, like, "Oh, okay, so this is working." But then
Mm.
also sort of like, "Okay, this is working." So it's a real weird sort of like emotion that flows through you. But it's not something I need, but it's something that reminds me why I'm doing it.
Yeah,
But to me, communication is really, really key in making sure that people understand. Like you, I mean, you're wearing one of our tees, right? You're sort of that tee itself. You bought that tee, and that is now a therapy session for a man, right? That's as clear as we got, right? You buy this tee, we make 20 quid profit on that tee, and that is a therapy session for a man, right? Pretty simple, right? That's where it goes. It goes into a pot, and then a man can apply for that therapy session. So a free therapy session. So we're trying to make like it accessible, and we're trying to make it really simple.
yeah, yeah. Excellent. And you talked about there your kind of your sort of habits that you've formed, the things that you're aware of. This not, mental health is not a linear thing, right? So I always like to ask people how their last week's been. And let's for because it's you, how what do you think is the lowest number that you've logged over the last week, and what's the highest number that you've logged?
Okay, yeah. So I'm hyper aware of my mental health, right? That's on my mental fitness. I'm hyper aware of it. Um, so I went up and did a talk. I'm not going to say where it was, but I went up to London to give a talk at a construction company on Monday in London. Um, they'd had an incident. They'd had a suicide, but it was sort of like it was an incident that clearly rocked everyone. There was a certain amount of I nearly swore there. Sugar. We need to get someone in to sort of to talk about this. I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm the right person to sort. I'm not a therapist. I don't know if I'm the right person being paid out, whether it was me or someone else went. But I went up there, and I'm talking to sort of like I walked into a room of 20 builders, and they're like they've had something pretty traumatic happen to them the week before. Who's this twat in a baseball cap and some glasses, right? So that was the lowest I've been all this week. I was a 6.5 when I sat in front of those people, and I'm sitting there going like I'm not going to get through to you. You are giving me blank faces here, guys. One even yawned. I mean, I don't know. He'd been up since 4 o'clock in the morning, and whatever it was. But it was hard. I mean, like my talks are. I mean, I talk with energy. I talk with energy, but they are. I do. I'm trying my best in the half hour, 45 minutes, hour that I've got with you guys to try and get as much information across as possible to help you help yourselves, right? I want you all join Talk Club. I want you to download our app. I want you to all sort of like go, no, we've got therapy, we can get to you. I can help you help yourself, right? But when I sort of get these things of sort of like blank faces, and then and then someone sort of said as we were walking out, goes, "Oh, I didn't expect that. I thought you were going to run a talk club." I'm like, "Well, I can't really run a talk club with men who don't really know what they're so raw about it, and they've never heard of it before. They've got to choose it." You just walked in because I didn't expect it to be a sales pitch, and that really hurt. Really, really. He didn't
Wow.
mean it. He didn't mean it, right? He didn't mean it in those words. He didn't mean it, and I knew exactly where he was. I didn't. He knew. He he didn't see it as he didn't see those words. But as an ex-advertiser, I heard sales pitch as in I've just been brought in to sell something, and I'm informing people of our services. So I'm sort of like going. So I'm going. Okay, well, in my head, that is probably a sales pitch. But that really, really hurt me. That really triggered me in sort of like into sort of something that I'm not selling things to people. I'm not a salesman. I have to keep repeating to everyone that I need people to know that I earned more money when I was 22 than I do now, and I've now got 3 kids and a mortgage, and I didn't have those when I was 22. And all my collection of Nike trainers are all bought on Vinted. They're all secondhand. So I sort of like it really hurt me. So I was sort of like I was probably a 6.5, 6 at that point, of that moment where I left the South Bank. But I know how to pull myself back up. I know how these numbers are going to affect me. So I had therapy. I literally booked in my therapy for the next morning because I knew I would be triggered by talking to a load of working class boys who probably don't really want me there. I grew up with a lot of working class boys, so I know it's going to take. Steve was a working class lad, so I know that it's going to be a bit harder for me to do this if I can get the idea of mental fitness and how are you out of 10 with them. I've done my job. So that was probably my lowest moment of the last week was Monday at probably about 3 o'clock, between sort of 2 and 3 o'clock was my lowest. I did another talk after that, and my numbers came up a little bit more, so that was all good. And then I had good therapy, so I was probably up to an 8 by the end of therapy. But I was a 9 last night watching my son play football. Literally, he scored a banger. I'm up at a 9 because he looked so happy with himself. So that's probably been my ups and downs of this week. My check-in was I check in. Right, I haven't done it this morning, but we've got a sheet for all the team because if we're working remotely or whatever, there's like 4 core salaried staff, and then we've got about sort of 6 or 7 part-time staff. So everyone checks in. So I can see where everyone's numbers are. Me and Gav can check on people and sort of stuff like that. So if someone's working remotely and they check in at 6, I could ring them up. Hey mate, what's going on? Why are you to 6? Can I take something off your hand today? But my numbers have been 8.5, probably easily for the past 3 weeks, month. So like regularly between 8 and 8.5. And my only dip was that 6. And it was like,
Yeah.
and it's hard because what you're doing is you're when you come in, you're talking to people they want solutions from you quite quickly, and you're going like, look, I am not a therapist, so I can give you what I've got, um, uh, be aware of and try and help them in that moment. Um, but there is a certain amount of like they want to know what's going on with the charity, so you are slightly micro pitching, which is sort of like the
Mm.
reason why it was triggering me, that word of sales pitch, is because I am pitching. I am sort of like trying to educate people about Talk Club. So and with my numbers, with everything like that, it's nothing he did. It's about how it felt for me. It's about like he's not done anything wrong there. I've interpreted that wrong. So
Mm.
it's about why has that hurt me? Because I don't. Where it comes down to it is I don't want people thinking that I'm making money or profiting off my friend's death. It's not complicated. It comes up
Yeah.
a lot in my therapy. It has done over the last 7 years. Someone said to me when we made Steve, it's like, that's the best work you've ever done. I was like, whoa, that's not work. That's not work. No, that really hurts. I know, and it was like it was a compliment, right? But I didn't want people to think that it was work. This was sort of like this was a this is stop to try and stop people going through what I went through with Steve. So it's really funny. It's like my relationship with the ad world and what that feeling made me before is really sort of really aware of it. And
Mm.
talk about it. That's the point. I talk about it. I'm aware. I know it, and I can talk it over with Gav, who's a therapist. I can talk it over my own therapy. I talk it over with my mum. I've got 3 layers of therapy. I've got sort of my mum is sort of like the I just need a therapist today, and she can be there for that. And Gav is brilliant. We can talk about everything that comes to work and something really, really sort of poignant here. And then I talk to my actual therapist about those two. So it's great.
But I think obviously the position that you're in, that's a fairly rare position to be in. But I do think it illustrates the importance of men being able to find a support infrastructure that works for them.
Mm.
And I think the kind of core driver for doing good enough chats for me is I want to do what I can to just normalize the idea that if a bloke's had a shit day, they feel comfortable saying to their mate, can I just talk to you about this because it's been a bit crap, and them having that conversation might be enough to stop them from building that tension up and feeling worse down the line, right? It's just, if we normalize that idea, it could be so helpful and powerful for men, but it's a cultural shift that needs to be influenced, right?
Well, but that's the reason why we're growing. That's the reason why we're growing. The knots we're growing at is because if you are worrying about a mate, if you can introduce how are you out of 10, if you can introduce how are you out of 10 into your vocabulary when it comes to your friendship with your friends, right? Which is what I've done. I've been lucky enough to do that with watch Steve, please. Everyone watch Steve. But there's a section in it called the round table where I get all my best mates together. We all know Steve. And we talk about like how we don't talk about mental health, and we talk about like I bring in the idea of mental fitness that I learned from Danny, and I bring it into that, and we deconstruct it amongst the gang, and sort of like and I mean. I know I use how are you out of 10 with those guys, right? Not as much as I should. I still don't talk to them. We like, they're all in London still, and I'm out here, and everyone's very busy. But I got a phone call from one of them. This is a long time ago. I got a phone call from one of them, and he rang up and he goes, "Benny, I'm a 3." And that was the opening gambit. I've known this man since for best part of 25, 30 years, right? He rang me up. Hello, I've known him longer than that. 35 years. I'm 50, so it's 35 years. And he rang me up and he's like, he goes, "Benny, I'm a 3." And he just started downloading about what was going on. Now, a year before, that phone call would have taken half an hour to get to why he actually rang me, right? We'd be talking about everything. I'd be going like, "Mate, why are you ringing me at 8:30 on a Wednesday? You never ring me at this time." It's sort of it'd be that sort of like in the back of my head. It'd be that, and he needs to talk. He needs to be heard, because that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's about being heard. We need to be heard. Everyone needs to be heard. Men need to be heard. Women need to be heard. And in society nowadays, we're not heard, and that's what Talk Club is. Talk Club allows you to be heard. You sit in a group, you say what's going on for you, and all that anyone can say is thank you for sharing. You can't do anything apart. You can't solve that problem. But what happens is that in that moment, he was heard, right? And my job isn't to solve his problem. My job is to just go, "I'm here for you. I hear you," because he's the one that can solve his problem, right? So, and obviously getting therapy is again, is like, I need to be heard, and trying to get those things sort of working further. And like, and what I said to these builders on this construction company on Monday was that imagine your brain is just a bottle of Coke, and it's been shaken all the time, right? And sooner or later, if that lid's not tight on, it's going to explode, right? Now, if you just if you shake it and you release it every bit, you're releasing the gas out of it, and that's what your brain is. Your brain needs to have that little bit of gas released. and just letting it loose. And that's the reason why it's really, really important for me that I have all these different coping mechanisms for dealing with stuff. But I was sort of like that thing on Monday. I was like I was back up again to an 8 within an hour
Mm,
because I was sort of like because I knew maybe 7.5 within an hour. Um, but I knew that there wasn't any intent in it. I knew there wasn't the intent. It was all my issue, not his. There was no intent to make me feel bad. Um, I went through logically what was going on and what wasn't going on, and then I was identifying what triggered me, and then I've got these other things in there to sort of like to expand out on why it triggered me, and suddenly I'm back up to a good fighting fit again, and like it's the same with football. I mean, like if you're playing on an injury and you keep on strapping it up and you don't give yourself the rest, and you don't give yourself the space, you're going to hurt yourself, right?
mm,
But if you tell your manager, "I'm playing on an injury," and he goes, "Can you give me 20 minutes at the end?" And you go, "Look, I'll give you everything I can at the end." Like, that's good management. That's good man management. And that's what we do inside Talk Club, but that's what we all ask people to do inside themselves. So it's just actually just be aware of where you are, and be honest about where you are. And if you talk to your mate, like, just sort of go like, "I'm a bit worried about you. You don't seem yourself over the past couple of weeks, right?" I listened to this Cockney on Good Enough Chats, and he sort of started talking about numbers. Can I just ask you how you are out of 10? 10 being top of the world, 1 being rock bottom. Where are, and then he'll say a number, and you go, why? And don't let him have 7. Don't let him have 7 straight away, because 7 is
mm,
sort of like 7 seems to be the go to when it comes to us Brits. Like, it is it's almost the oh, I'm okay, 7. Get them to go 7.1, or with some people say go 7 point, are you closer to an 8 or closer to a 6? I go like, you're 7.1 or 6.9. I want to get fractional. That's where I play it, right? Because if you go 7.1, you go, why? And you go 6.9, why? Right? Oh, I
mm,
feel better than average. I feel lower than average. And now you've got a conversation started. Because that's the whole point. It's like the numbers aren't actually important. The numbers are just a combination starter. That's all the combinations conversation starter. That's what they are. They're just sort of like a way of going. Like, it's really funny. My wife doesn't like the numbers, even though she's one of the founders. So she'll go like, I don't know. I'm a 4 and I'm an 8, and I go, so you're a 6? No, 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 I'm not 6. I go, what? I don't get it then. What? And I go, but okay, what color are you? I'm a mauve. Because that makes no sense to me. What does that mean, right? Right? And but we've had that conversation, and it's sort of like so it's I think it's a very very male or a masculine. I wouldn't even go male. It can be masculine. A very masculine trait. The numbers are a way of starting that conversation, and then it's sort of like, because we haven't got the language. I sort of like say quite a lot like, people go and talk to your mate about how you're feeling. They go, you might as well say go and speak Latin. I don't speak the foreign language called feelings. I've never
mm.
done. I wasn't taught how to do it by my dad. My granddad didn't teach my dad. So how am I gonna know how about this foreign language called feelings? But if you sort of say put it into a number, with 10 being top of the world, 1 being rock bottom, you go, okay, I feel a X, Y. And it's like it's really even interesting, like with the 10, Gav does it really differently. Gav will go, why am I not a 10? He'll start at why am I not a 10? And then he'll go,
Interesting.
I'll go, oh, well, he goes, oh, I'm a point 5 down because I'm carrying a cold or weather's rubbish. And then he'll start breaking it down like that. And I think I'm not there. I'm not ready for that yet. Right. That's the reason why he's a qualified therapist, but he's done the work on himself. But I currently aspire to be an 8.5, and I want to aspire to be a 9. So I know the things that would make me feel better. And that's what I'm trying to work on, to try and get myself a regular number at a 9, because that's where I want to be. And
Mm.
then I'm a 10 when I score a banger at football, or I'm a 10 when Arsenal win the title, and we will win it this year. We will, touch the wood. So
I'm a Sheffield Wednesday fan. There is nothing positive to look out for other than what may happen in the future. Yeah. Arsenal, you what?
We've got a group at Sheffield Wednesday. We've had a group up there. I went to an amazing group at Sheffield Wednesday. We've had a few groups in Sheffield's like our second biggest sort of collected city of groups. There was a point where I think we had sort of 6 up there at one point.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
Sheffield United's been a massive sort of like massive supporter of us since we started. But I remember going to one. The Sheffield United one was on a Monday, and the Sheffield Wednesday one was on a Monday, and the Sheffield United one was on a Wednesday, so it got very confusing.
Well,
Uh,
good people.
but I remember going to the group at Sheffield Wednesday and just being blown away by the honesty of these men. Like, it was almost that moment in Fight Club where they sort of go like I go, look, I go on a Monday and a Thursday, and he goes like, well, Tuesday, and that's like you're not aware of all these other clubs going on, and that was my first moment of sort of like, Christ, we're actually doing something here. Like,
Yeah.
listening to these blokes who I've never met, I don't know their lives, being so affected by the idea of just these 4 simple questions, these 4 simple rounds. But yeah, no, yeah, no, but that's the thing. I think it's really, really important for sort of like to hold on to things that are important to you, and know your like, and know what works for you. Um, and one of those things can be being honest with your friends, and you don't need to come to a talk club. Just use how you out of 10.
Yeah. Well, and just to kind of validate that even further, so like part of my journey, um, when I was really struggling, I decided that when somebody asked me how I was doing, I was going to answer them honestly, regardless of whether or not I thought they were ready for what I was going to say. And it completely changed the dynamic of the conversation in a very positive way,
Mm.
because they suddenly went, "Oh yeah, well I've been through something like that," or "My other half's gone through something like that," and I'm thinking, why is it taking me feeling this shit to have this conversation? Why can't we normalize just doing this and reducing the sense of isolation that exists around it, right? Because part of the contributing factor to that is you feel isolated, like it's only happening to you. And
Yeah, I
then you
mean,
suddenly happening to others changes.
well, that's the thing. I mean, like, how are you is a greeting, right? How are you out of 10 is I care and I want to hear, right? I want to listen. So I mean, my kids go to, my youngest 2 are still at the primary school around the corner, and I literally live 4 minutes from dropping my littlest off at school, right? Maybe 3. But it can take me an hour to walk home, right? Because I'll be walking into other dads, and I was sort of like, I remember one time I saw 3 dads on my walk home, and I walked up, and I was like, "Hello, mate, you right?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I could just see in the glint in their eyes. I've been doing this long enough now, so I could see the glint in their eyes. So, you sure? How are you? How are you out of 10? He goes, and his literally the question is, have you got time? Yeah, mate, I've got time. Got time for you. So you just almost like step back on off the main road onto one of the side roads. 20-minute chat about what's going on. And then suddenly it's like the message comes in later, mate, I really needed that. Thank you so much. I was a 6. I'm an 8 now. And it's just all they've done is been heard. And it's taken me 10, 15 minutes to sort of just hear someone. And I've not
Mm,
done anything. I've not done anything. All I've done is gone, how are you out of 10? Have you got, and he's gone, have you got time? And I said, I've got time. And then
mm,
it's like, and that's actually all it needs out of anyone is sort of like, if you're worried about, there's one of my mates I was quite worried about recently, and I hadn't heard from him for a couple of weeks, and I know he was going through some stuff. And all I started doing was sort of like, I rang him a couple of times, he wasn't answering. I knew that he was. I go straight to my trigger. I go straight to he's not with us anymore. So I made sure that I knew that he was still with us, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to just keep nudging him. So I just do this. I do a question mark /10, right? This, see that? So it's sort of
yeah.
like question mark. Obviously, it's reversed, but it's question mark /10. And so I just do that on thingy to him. And I nudged him about 4 or 5 times, and he's like, and he goes, okay, he goes, sorry, I just haven't been in the space to talk. Just on message, haven't been in the space to talk. I'm a 5 now, but I was probably a 3 when you started messaging me, I'm a 5 now. Thank you so much for messaging me. So then, mate, I'm here. I'm here. So message him again next day. Goes, I'm a 6. Leave me alone. Next message him again next day. I'm a 7. Thank you. And this is sort of like, and it's just all it is just going like, I'm here. I'm here for you. And I can't solve his problems. I can't solve what's going on for him. And then he messaged me the other day. He was off to Millwall, and he's like, I'm an 8, and I really appreciate you. Thank you. And it's just like, and that's quite a lot of what it is. It's not our responsibility to look after anyone else. Don't get me wrong, right? To look after our friends, it's not our responsibility. But if you want to be there for your friends, that's a good way of allowing them to be allowing them to know that you are there for them by just going, "How are you out of 10?" Because
Mm,
that's all it is. Because you can't control how they feel. You can't control if they respond. Right? If they're not ready to talk, they won't talk. Um, but it's actually going like, and it is that thing about burden. I don't want to burden people with my problems. Well, you ain't burdening. I asked. That's the problem. You said
mm,
if you're not burdening me. I asked a question. I've got time. So, that's a, but that brings me back to everything that we do at TC. It's just trying to make it easy for people to say yes. Trying to make it easy for communication to sort of be easy. Um, and because what you do is you think that like people think that as you say about that, it's the only thing you sort of said like, oh, I'm I'm going through that and no one else is going through that. When you sit in a talk club session and you realise that everyone in that room is going through exactly what you're going through, and all they need to be is heard, all you need is heard, and and yeah, it's just they're pretty powerful sessions. I'd obviously you're trained now, but I'd love you to get along to one and also they're not for everyone. I completely get that they're not for
yeah,
everyone, right? And that's okay too. Like you need all your different ways of making it work for yourself. All I've ever tried to do is I don't want another Steve. I don't want someone to go through what I've gone through.
yeah. And it's like you say, it's a really simple, accessible idea, and just hearing you talking about sort of nudging your mates with the question mark 10 thing. I want you to know that's something that I'm going to start deploying. So I found myself just randomly checking in on mates now as a matter of course, but I think the brevity of that is likely to be very effective
Mm.
um, with certain people. So I want you to know that I'm going to lift that and shift that and start doing it much more actively myself because I can. You're right. It's about letting people know that you are there for them, not trying to have all the answers for them.
Well, this is the thing. I'm not qualified. I'm sort of like, I mean, when I've seen therapists going through their training and what they have to do, and the idea of holding space, and the idea of creating enough enough area for them to sort of find those solutions for themselves. But what we can do is we can go. I'm here to listen if you want to talk, and the structures we've got. As I'm saying, like the talking football or the talking running or talking skating or the talking exercise groups that we've got are literally just light touches. I mean, like all they're doing is you go, look, come play football with us, right? Like we're a good bunch of boys, come play football with us, and all you're doing is saying a number at the beginning of it, right? And then like there's a bloke who was playing with me maybe 2 years ago now. He'd be checking in. He's a Romanian, checking in. Every time he checked in, he was an 8. And I looked at his eyes and I was like, bollocks, you're not an 8, right? But you tell me you're an 8, you're an 8. I can't argue with that. So, uh, week 2, 8, week 3, 8, week 4, 8. I'm like, this isn't right. I checked in at a 6 and he went, I'm a, I'm probably a 4. I've been a 4 for the past 2 months, and you just saw this sort of like the facade drop in front of him. And it's really interesting when you do it when playing football, because people berate themselves for not doing the pass properly or not scoring the goal. And you give them the ball a lot more, and you give them a lot more time, and you go like, mate, it's all good, don't stress, right? And you pass him the ball a bit more. And then I was away filming, and I came back, and I came back. It was probably about 3 weeks later, and he sort of like, and he'd gone into a talk club, and I know it was longer than that. It's probably about a month later. He'd been to talk club. I don't know. I don't know if he got into a therapy. It's confidential, so I don't know. But but when he checked in at an 8, and I went, "Are you an 8?" He goes, "No, I am actually an 8 at the moment." And it was just a brilliant moment of sort of like, I haven't seen him for, no, it was longer than a month, maybe 6 weeks. I hadn't seen him for a while, and I'd seen that facade drop, and like feeling like you've sort of like, you've unearthed something, you've discovered something in the sand, and then to come back and actually go like, your eyes are telling me you're an 8, and that's good. What you do is, I mean, like, it's fascinating because when you use how you out of 10 all the time, like I'll do it like, I'm trying to remember what it was, a couple of weeks ago now. I did it in a group setting, to talking to some business people. And I sort of said, "Oh, you don't have to share your numbers. If you want to share your numbers, oh no, we can share our numbers." And everyone started sharing their numbers. And this one bloke checked in at 5, and everyone just looks at him in shock. I didn't know you were like, what's going on? Like, literally, you could, like, I almost wanted to leave the room and let them all talk now, because it was, because he'd been masking that so well. And then he just opened up with sort of like something was going on at home and sort of stuff like that. And I said, look, you're in it. If you guys are happy to keep it confidential, keep it in a safe space, we'll keep it in a safe space. So we just had this, like, we had like a mini talk club amongst us. And it was sort of, it was really interesting because it was, they'd all known each other. They were working quite closely with each other, but they didn't know what was going on.
Mm.
And it wasn't that, by the way they reacted to each other, it wasn't they didn't want to tell each other, it's they hadn't been given the tools or the space to actually open up. That's all it was. It was as simple as that. It was just it's that, and that's the great thing. People think it's almost too simple, and it's like, it's just, well, and uh, Blue O'Connor, one of the founders, came up with how are you out of 10, and he he goes, it's below. It's been used in pain management for years, and he goes, I use it in. He goes, I go, we need something different to sort of like that can actually structure about what we're going around. How do we get to mental fitness? And he goes, well, I'm using how you out of 10 with kid mentoring, and I was like, well, that's it, because men are just kids, right? And so I'm with Picasso. Good ideas good ideas are borrowed, great ideas are stolen. So me and Picasso are the same thing. I'm nicking that, and but that's the thing. It's just like, it's just you've got to find those ways of just making it easier for people to sort of to get to the truth. That's why we call it the truth question.
Yeah, yeah, it's brilliant. I, I'm conscious. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground already, Ben. There are a couple more questions I'd like to ask you. So the first one is your personal sort of the evolution of your, let's say, mental fitness, because that is a phrase that I love, and I have referenced you when I've used that phrase as well. So I'm borrowing that one from you that you've taken from Danny, and Picasso is our friend and all that.
You take it, you run with it. Well, my mental health journey is sort of like, mental fitness journey is quite complicated. I mean, like, I think I was first exposed to mental health when I was 10. When I was 10, when my dad was schizophrenic, and it's quite a traumatic point in my life. And me and my mum and my little sister were sort of ended up in a refuge in Woolwich in South London, for bad wives and kids. And even with that, I was the only male there. A lot of them have been beaten up. These women have been beaten up by their partners. and I almost felt the sort of my first level uh, of shame that being a man sometimes will bring me. That sort of like quite a lot of time when you feel this injustice in the world, and the power that some men, and the horribleness of some men, not all men. It's really important that us men who aren't part of that world um, stand up for justice and making sure that all people are protected. And that's the reason why it's really important for me to be the dad I never really had for my son. So my mental fitness journey, health journey started probably when I was around that age, 10 or 11, and being exposed so vividly to schizophrenia, and then uh, growing up through that world, my mum sort of I've written a post. My mum's for Mother's Day. I put it on LinkedIn. Everyone, Claire goes to me, "Why are you putting something on LinkedIn for your mum? Sort of twat." And I was like, "Well, my mum really wants recognition for sort of like for how hard she's worked uh, as a therapist, and she started a therapy journey after my dad was ill, and she had to sort of like I even wrote in this thing. My mum ended up being a I'm going on a tangent here, mate, but my mum ended up being a saleswoman in Dixon's in Eltham in South London. My Anyone who knows my mum is like technology is not my mum's not a technology person, and my mum is an introvert, really quiet. She hates talking to people, right? She's a very good therapist. She likes listening to people. She's very good at listening to people. So to her, for what she did for me there, me and my sister, to become this salesperson at Dixon's, so she could feed us, I will never forget, and I've always got that. So I put this post on LinkedIn to sort of thank her for Mother's Day, and she loved it because she got so much recognition from people and sort of saying about how important she is in their lives. So I think that's when my first sort of journey started. My mum trained as a therapist. Open university in the evening, so I was very aware of mental health and mental ill health. She she uh, she met my stepdad, and I grew up in a sort of like education was there as a working so I was probably middle class, but I grew up in a quite a working class world. But my mum's educated and my stepdad's educated, so I became educated. I went to uni. Was the only sort of there was probably only there was two in my year of 200 that went to uni, and then that was my first sort of like proper struggle with mental health, well, my own struggle at uni, and uh, my own sort of like my own, I suppose, my own dalliance with suicide ideation. Sort of like when I look back on it, I don't think I was aware of it at the time. And then sort of like got into advertising, quite competitive world, lots of pressure, lots of stress. And then when I look back on those moments of sort of, I'm pretty sure during my 20s and 30s, I travelled all over the world. I won loads of awards. I sort of like was working at some of the best ad agencies in the world. But I don't think I let myself go higher than six, because if I go higher than the six, I've got to be allowed to get myself lower than six. So I'm pretty sure I've numbed throughout that time. So my mental journey throughout the most creative sort of like my period of that was sort of probably sort of sixes. And then we started Talk Club in 2019. We obviously got locked down in 2020. Got locked down a week after my TED talk, which is probably the most stressful thing I've ever done in my life. Um, I sort of dreamt the night before that Steve was still alive, and I woke up. And I woke up. I talk about Steve in my TED talk. So I woke up um, thinking I've got to bring my coach, because you get given a coach. Good TED talks, you get given a coach, or you work with a coach on how to deliver it. And I'm ringing up. Oh, I've got to ring Caroline, and I've got to tell her that Steve's still alive. And is he going to walk? It's triggering me here. Oh, a little bit of a moment there. Um, and it's like maybe he could walk in, and sort of like, and I literally was thinking about this for maybe 3 or 4 minutes that he was still alive, and I can't do this TED talk. And I remember just falling down and crying in my hotel room in Tunbridge Wells. and then trying to go out for a run to try and clear my head, and then crying at sort of 6 o'clock in the morning while I'm walking down, while I'm down Tunbridge Wells High Street, and this cleaner just looking at this road sweeper just looking at me, going like, "Look, fucking weirdo," and uh, and then sort of doing that talk to 1,000 people, and I did a practice and I was so rubbish and I couldn't complete it. And I cried on stage, and everyone was sort of, "Okay, you don't have to do this." And I was like, I need to do this." So I did it, and I ran off stage before I could even accept the applause, and I was like basically booted back on stage. And there's like, I've got a standing ovation to 1,000 people. It was just amazing. And I don't think I enjoyed that as much as I didn't. Don't think I appreciate that as much as I did. Like now I can see it and I can feel it, and I've seen the video and I can sort of do it. But that was like that was February 2020, and we obviously got locked down in March. And I'm pretty sure I hugged 1,000 people, so I'm pretty sure I was a super spreader. And uh, and I remember feeling really rubbish at the beginning of COVID, and just that sort of like, we just started Talk Club. What were we going to do? And that was probably my lowest moment. I was probably a 4.5 during beginning of COVID, and just sort of like, as we all were, I found I couldn't even do therapy. I couldn't do therapy because I'm going, well, like all the stuff I'm feeling, you must be feeling. So you can't be there. I can't do that. I couldn't work, and my empathy level was too complicated. And then from then onwards, I've regularly been pushing myself up between the sort of 7.5 to 8.5, and I'm now strong 8.5 pretty much all the time, apart from those spikes of hurt. But I work really, really hard on it. I sort of, I still journal. I have therapy, monthly therapy. Um, I have regular, after this meeting, I've got a regular check in with Gav. Me and Gav's put aside 1.5, 2 hours a week to talk through everything that's going through Talk Club, talk about our own feelings and stuff. Really, really good, healthy conversations about what's going on. Things have come up for us inside the week, as well as running the charity. And I've got a therapist with 40 years experience on speed dial. So she's sort of like my mum. If there is something that really triggers me, I ring mum, and
Mm.
I'll go like, "Mum, I need you to be the therapist today. I don't want mum answers. I need that." And so it's my journey's quite my journey is quite hard inside all of that. You've got Steve in the middle of all that, and the feel that I feel like I let him down. Uh, but like, even when I was going to make the film, my wife said to me, are we doing the light bulb moment? Is that the next question, or are
Yeah,
we?"
yeah, that's the next one. We can go into it seamlessly.
Okay, it's the light bulb moment. So the light bulb moment for me about creating Steve was, I was sitting in a a hammock in France, and I've been through those 3 years of therapy and still not found any answers. And I read that an article that the biggest killer of men was suicide. Biggest killer of men under 45 is now, currently the latest statistics is 54. I think biggest killer of men under 54. And then you start getting into heart attacks, and so it's pretty sort of like, I mean, statistically, the thing most likely to kill me is me, and that's pretty sort of like, it's pretty heavy to sort of think of it like that. Um, so I'm sitting in this hammock, and I'm going in France. Probably the first time I've switched off in those 3 years. And I'm suddenly supped I've picked up at the airport when we've left England. And I'm reading this article that tells me those statistics, and I got really angry. I sort of like, when like, Steve wasn't a statistic. He was a man. He was a friend. He was a father. He was a son. He was sort of like, he was a beautiful man, and he wasn't a number. And it really, really fucking wound me up. It really. So um, I actually, in the same magazine, I read that men of our age watch sport and documentaries, and that was literally, it was two different parts of his magazine. And I remember going like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a doc. And I turned around to my wife and I said, I think I need to make a film about Steve. And she goes, no, you're not. And I said, no, I think I need to. And she goes, okay, on three conditions. One, you honest with me all the time that you are doing this, how it's making you feel, where you communicate with me, because me and my wife talk all the time. It's really, really important, our communication. Two, you you get it cleared by your mum. Like your mum has to clear this. She has to say it's okay for you to do this. And two, you up your therapy. And I was like, there was no question inside my, like, I'm going to put us. I didn't have a proper job at the time. I'd sort of like, there was no question that financially we were going to put, like, I crowdfunded it all. I sort of like, there was no question from my wife. She trusted me that we were going to be all right financially. And we didn't have any major savings. We didn't have anything like that. I was gonna sort of put my energy into creating an hour and a half doc. Her 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 take was straight away about my well-being for taking it on. It was never about like, you can't do this because we financially can't afford it. And it
Mm.
it, it did hit us. It did hit us, but we managed to make it work. But that was sort of like, that was the moment of those, that light bulb moment of sitting in that hammock going, I'm angry now. I was staying in my in-laws' place in France. I'm angry now. And then the belief that my wife had in me, but then again, the fact of that we can talk openly about, this is going to be emotionally draining on you, and you need to make sure that you're looking after yourself.
Mm.
I mean, like, so there's almost a two combined in one there about my journey of where I was, but also going like, um, how I needed to do something with this negativity that was in the world, and that was going to be that cathartic moment of sort of like, I n- I need to make something. I need to find some good out of all this bad. And the fact that we're sitting here now, I mean, like, I've made good out of bad.
Yeah.
So it's I can't bring Steve back. I can't do that. I haven't got a time machine. But I can stop the next person feeling the way that I feel and I felt and the way Steve felt. So yeah, so that's sort of like, that's my journey of where it was, and the light bulb moment, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you used the word cathartic, because that's what was going through my head as well. It sounds, the way that the film project um, was kind of viewed and supported by those around you was almost a therapeutic experience in and of itself. You recognised that you wanted to do it, but you had people around you who were there making sure that you were all right to do it, which is huge.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and even with, like, when I rang Steve's parents, Les was Les was sort of like, Les is Steve's dad, and Les was like a second father to me growing up. Like, when everything was going wrong in my family, I was over Steve's house from the age of 11 to the age of 22, 23. They're my surrogate family. I still send them sort of like, I mean, I sent Mother's Day note. So, they are very important in my life, and I look up to Les as the way that he acted with us when we were kids, about how I like to play with my kids and be stupid and stuff like that. And I rang Les up and I sort of said, look, mate, I want to make a film, and I want to make a film about Steve. And they're very private people. They sort of like, they would never normally put their head above the parapet. And they went to me, Ben, if you believe that this can help people, then we give it our blessing, and we'll be involved. And I really do believe, I mean, Talk Club would never have happened if it wasn't for the Yates' family. They're, both in their generosity in their stories, but also their ability to um to try and find some positives out of the negatives. But it's horrible. It's just horrible. Like, I never, ever, ever, ever want to go through what they went through. Like, I can't, like, literally, I like look at my kids and I'm going like, right, it's just, I'll be honest, it's sort of like I can't imagine. I don't know. I cannot imagine. I've lost a friend, but I haven't lost a son,
Yeah.
and I hope I never, ever, ever have to feel that. So it's so, but the point is that there's too many people who've done that. There's too many people, and it's such a we are so fragile. We are so fragile as people, but we're also so fragile as men and as boys. I mean, unfortunately, this may be triggering to anyone, but I'm gonna put it out there. When I say it's the biggest killer of men under 54, it's the biggest killer of males under 54. So there's 9-year-olds, boys taking their own lives, and you sort of go when you hear horrible things like that. I mean, obviously there's sort of mental health amongst young girls as well. It's still terrible. They're more likely to self harm. But when it comes to that terminalness, it's young boys, and I think it's really complicated now. I think it's even more complicated now than it ever was when we were growing up. For young men to sort of like to find those positives, they would like they need strong male role models. Men nowadays need to be showing uh, boys it's okay to cry. It's okay to show your emotion. It's okay to sort of like not feeling great. Me and my boy, I mean, I've got two beautiful girls as well, but me and my boy goes to me like, he'll go to me, Daddy, how are you today? What number are you? He'll ask me what my number is. Yeah. I mean, we had this great conversation, me and my son. Like we'll go to football and I'll like, what, like he had a he had a game at the weekend playing against a team that sort of like, that beaten them before. I was like, "What number are you, mate?" He goes, I'm a 6, Daddy. I'm a bit worried about that sort of like that player and blah, blah, blah." I go, "Don't worry about him. You just concentrate on you." We talked it through. I go, "What's the worst thing? Just enjoy the game. Just you play your game." We just talked about it all the way through. He's only 11. And then after we're coming back and they drew 5 all. Dex had a brilliant game. And I went, "How are you now?" And he goes, I'm I should have scored that." Oh, "No, don't worry about that." He goes, I'm probably a good 8 now, Daddy. I'm probably a good 8." And when things are sort of stressing me out a little bit at home, he'll walk up and he'll sort of go to me, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm good." He goes, "What number are you?" And it's like, so we can have that conversation. I can have that
Yeah.
conversation with 11-year-old. And my youngest, she's only 8, and she's sort of like she's starting to get to numbers now. So she's sort of like she's got this thing, and I think it's really, really important as men, especially, to have that dialogue with the people around you, and to teach to teach your sons, you teach your girls as well, but teach your sons to say, to have that to understand numbers and to understand the feelings of that, because that will help them in the future. That will help them regulate their feelings, and when they feel that negativity against them, and the same as girls, but it's actually back to that sort of being heard, right? You will be able to teach. We can teach young boys to listen. Like
Yeah.
I had this story with sort of like literally this woman came up to me on the street, a couple of years ago now, longer. She went to me, "You're Ben Akers, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, what have I done?" And she went, "I want to thank you. My husband is now listening more at home." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I didn't think of that." Because when you sit in a talk club session, you're only talking for sort of like 10 minutes, 10 minutes max, right? I need to work out the actual maths on this, but you're listening, you're empathizing, you're understanding, as I said before, you're understanding what other people are going through. You're really picking up sort of like, "Oh, you're going through that as well. Oh, you're going through that as well." So it's not just me. And we need to know that we're not alone, but we need to know that this is normal. But we also need to know that sort of like that we're making a difference. Our actions are changing. And so just using, please come to Talk Club, to anyone who's listening to this. But if it's not for you, why not just try how you out of 10 with your family? Try it with your
Yeah.
kids, try it with your friends. Like try and keep that dialogue going, because believe it or not, they're not mind readers. And if you're masking it, they'll probably think you're okay. And I'm honest with my son. sort of like if I'm feeling low, I'll go, mate, I'm probably about a 7 at the moment. Probably maybe 6.5, 7. He asked me about that thing on. He was asking me about after my therapy session on Tuesday afternoon. He said to me, "How was London yesterday?" I said, "Look, mate, I'll be honest. I was probably down to 6.5." And he was like, "Oh, what happened?" This man said something to me that he didn't mean to make me sad, but he made me sad. And he goes, "How are you now?" And he goes, "Oh, mate, I'm good. I'm a good 8.5." And I sort of like, and I had a really good therapy session. He knows all about my therapy. He goes like, and my wife has therapy too. He goes, we had a really good session. And I talked about it. And I think it's, for me, it's really, really important to give to my son that, that it's okay to talk about his feelings.
Mm. That's a heck of a legacy as well. I mean, to be creating that with your own kids, to get them to a point where they've got the emotional um, awareness
Well,
and the confidence to have those conversations is incredibly.
I mean, I ain't taking all the credit. My wife's an incredible mum, but you sort of going, but I think that all our kids just need to be shown the way, right? It's like I made a film called Our Kids, Our Lives, looking at the mental health of children, um, and what I was trying to do with that is that we teach our kids how to brush their teeth. And there's a scene in there where I talk about kids. We teach our kids how to brush their teeth properly, but we never talk to our kids about how to regulate their emotions. We never talk to our kids about how to sort of like open up, and our kids brush their teeth twice a day. So why aren't you talking? Why aren't you getting your kids to check in with you with their emotions twice a day? It's
Mm.
not complicated. It's actually very, very simple. And that's exactly where everything that we're doing with TC, it's everything very, very simple.
Yeah.
So, but these simple things, like if we go back to the analogy of teeth, if you don't brush your teeth for 3 weeks 3 days in a row, teeth's going to start to smell. Now, what happens if you don't check in with your emotions 3 days in a row? These regular things about plaque buildup and emotion buildup. It's sort of like, I mean, these are all things that are because we've not been taught how to do it. Because there's not sort of like, because there hasn't been, because someone wasn't making any money off it, Colgate, right? We were if there was something about the the emotional build-up of things that were bothering us. And that's where it is. I think it's really, really important to sort of just keep those dialogues going. Be the best dad that you can be. Right, it's really important for me. It's sort of like if you can, you, our job is always as a parent. Our job is to make ourselves redundant. That's our job. Our job is for our kids to survive without us. Like that, they can cook and they can clean and they can do their own washing and they can, but then they can stand on their own 2 feet. So our job is to make ourselves redundant. But it's also emotionally. Our job is to sort of like make sure that emotionally they're prepared for the world.
Mm.
And simply using the numbers and showing that you're that you don't always find it easy, and crying in front of you, like as men, cry in front of you. Don't just cry when the football's on or whatever. I don't think I've ever cried at football, but people sort of talk about that. But cry. Do you know what I mean, like, show your emotions? It's sort of like, and like it's really, really important for boys to know that it's okay to be emotional and cry and actually have those emotions, because it's really important that we have those feminine emotions, especially as no matter how masculine we are.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that you just said. That's like the legacy of encouraging kids and showing kids how to deal with their emotions in a positive and constructive way is absolutely huge. The last question is more specifically about you and the advice that you would give. So to somebody who's hearing this now, who has finds themselves in a similar situation to some of the things that you have personally experienced, what's the most important thing that person can do to help themselves?
Take on the concept of mental fitness, right? So your mental health isn't something that happens to you. It's something that you can take control of, the same way as your physical fitness, right? If you eat kebabs all the time, right, then you will start feeling stodgy. Fact, right? So that's the same as your mental fitness. If you are not looking after yourself, you will start feeling stodgy, right? Mentally foggy and mentally stodgy. So take on the concept of mental fitness, the idea of mental fitness is something that you can control, and you can move up and down, and you can actually and it's okay to feel a 6 one day, and it's okay to feel an 8 the other day. Same as our physical fitness. I woke up this morning, my back was sore, right? It's okay, right? Um, Stretch it out. So concept of mental fitness. And then the idea of honesty and being heard. So when I say honesty and being heard, sort of start using how are you out of 10 with people who care for you and you care for, um, to create an honest dialogue with people. But then also, more importantly, give them space and give yourself the space to be heard. Because being heard is what we actually all crave and all need, right? Um, it's not about finding that solution. It's actually about being heard. When I mean, obviously there's different modalities of therapy, but all the therapy I've ever had is no one's ever given me advice on to do this or do that. All the therapy I've ever had is they will create the space for me to find the solution myself, right?
Mm.
So that is all you're doing on this minor thing at the top end when you're not 2s and 3s and into therapy. It's actually at the top end when you're 7s, 6, 7s and 8s. And you're giving yourself space to be heard, but you're allowing that permission for a good dialogue to happen, because communication is just everything. Communication with the people you love, communication with the people who you work with, and sort of like and it's not just attacking and going, I don't like that. You're going, okay, that made me feel this way. Right? Why did that make you feel that way? Okay, well, that made me feel this way because of that. And that's just being hurt. So that's
Mm.
what mental fitness, how are you out of 10? And create a dialogue to be heard.
Amazing. Thank you, Ben. We'll make sure, by the way, that there are obviously talk clubs tagged in all the posts when the episodes go out, and we'll make sure that there are links to the film as well, Steve, in the description, so people can check that out. If you have heard this episode and it's resonated with you, or you know somebody that you think would benefit from checking out Talk Club's work, please share this episode. This is the best possible route that we've got for getting this in front of people that need to see it, and to help themselves. If you'd like to subscribe to us, we'd appreciate it. Chuck us a subscription on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, wherever you find us. The more people that subscribe to this, the more credibility it has, apparently, and the more likely it is to be served to more people. And that's the whole point of this. We want more people to see and hear these conversations. If you have a moment to give us a review, that'll be lovely. Just don't think twice about it. The number we want is 5 stars, no other number. Apparently, it doesn't matter what you say in the reviews, but I'd love nice things to appear there as well alongside your 5-star review. That all helps. And last but by no means least, if you would like to help by making a contribution to support the work Good Enough Chats is doing, like help fund some of the platform that we're using to record this on, website, etc., you can do that now through buymeacoffee.com/good enough chats. All that remains for me to say is, Ben, thank you once again for coming on and giving your time up. And I know both your personal journey that you've talked about and the work that Talk Club is doing are going to be incredibly helpful for other people to hear about. And I hope that we see some more captains coming out as a result of this. We see some more clubs being formed, and we see more guys getting benefit from the amazing service that you're providing. Thank you so much for doing it. We will be back. He said he's going to include this in the unedited version. Go again, Dan. We will be back again soon with another episode of Good Enough Chats. Cheers.